Jim Acosta. Thank you so much.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come.
Well, y'all, here we are Thursday. You haven't heard from me last few days. Been real busy, but I want to say something about Tuesday. So Tuesday, as we were traveling to the UK Cancer Center for my wife, she said to me as I was driving down Bluegrass Parkway, "Hey, you ever had a song get stuck in your head?" I was like, "I've had this one stuck in here since 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. Jolene, Jolene." Of course, I said, "Oh, that must be from Dolly." So I played Dolly's song, and we get to the clinic, talking to her amazing cancer doc there in UK, and looking on my news feeds and find out that Dolly Parton had passed away. Wow. Of cancer, of course. So she told Lupe, I said, "Lupe, she must have been sending you a morning message on your way." So yeah, big Dolly fan. Really find it hilarious right now. You got all these people out there, "Oh, we love Dolly, yet they're the ones who are trying to cut the funding for her book program for kids, that give kids of low income free books from the time they're little all the way up to adulthood, so they can learn to value reading as a way to change their life." So yeah, just so funny. All these politicians who are trying to cut funding for that Dolly program, and they want to talk about how much they love Dolly. Dolly, a character that she had thought one time to step in and see what it was like to go to one of the drag shows as herself and see who would win, and she lost, or a lookalike show. Yeah, what an amazing personality she was. Just loved everybody. Did so much for Appalachia, sorry. And yeah, it means a lot to me. But y'all, welcome to the Hillbilly Think Tank with Spencer Keck. I am the educated hillbilly, and no, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies here in Kentucky ever since my kith and kin came through that Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone and the other Long Hunters on their quest to create life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right here. And that's where they did it. So y'all, again, I'm Spencer Keck, retired Navy doc. I'm a combat veteran, Fleet Marine Force combat veteran, and a candidate for magistrate in the Hardin County Fiscal Court, District 3. And in my day job, I'm a public school teacher. Public school teacher currently, and again, running for magistrate. So love to talk to you. Love to have you vote for me. All right, y'all. Folks, again, y'all, I just today want to talk to you through 1 week, one single week of this administration's economic policy, and let you decide for yourself whether it really adds up to a plan or a pile. In that 1 week, the president waived tariffs on 300,000 metric tons of foreign beef to help Argentina, while American cattlemen watched their markets drop the same morning. Now, 50% tariffs went up on $20 billion worth of Canadian goods, and Canada hit back 2 days later with its own 50% tariffs on American goods. Think about that. Goods from right here. But also, here's a list of them. So Canada struck back after we did that strike. They struck back with 50% tariffs on American dairy, fish, lumber, steel, and aluminum. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of our neighbors are losing SNAP food assistance due to underwork requirements and rules that took effect this year. And the Iran war, the one he promised would be over in weeks, still has no announced exit strategy. 7 weeks past his own deadline. Now, y'all, I mean, this whiplash of covering all of these 4 things in one news cycle. And there's more. I mean, this is just what I think right now is extremely pertinent to us, what we're going through. You know, it's just one thing after another with whiplash. We'll keep whiplashing back and forth between tariffs with Canada. They're only the country second to China that buys so much stuff from Kentucky, from the United States. They're our second largest trading partner. And we're treating them like this. We're treating our economy like this, vis-a-vis treating theirs like that. Something's got to give. So that's not a coincidence. You know, it's not a coincidence of bad luck at all. That is a governing pattern. Let's break it down and leave it broke. That's it. Well, you know, as long as they're making money off of it, they don't care how broke it is. So segment 1, helping Argentina, but hurting Hardin County. So, y'all, on August 21st, President Trump announced the United States would allow up to 300,000 metric tons of ground beef into the county. It's going to come in here tariff-free for 90 days. The second and by far the largest beef import waiver of his whole term. He said the beef would sell at 25% below market price. He framed it as a relief for American families paying too much for ground beef. Well, here's the problem. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association said cattle markets turned sharply lower the very morning of the announcement, to the detriment of farmers and ranchers. The U.S. Cattlemen's Association went further, warning this, on top of earlier tariff exemptions for Brazil and Argentina, sidelines U.S. producers and threatens cattle prices. An agricultural economist at Kansas State pointed out this new waiver alone is nearly half of everything the U.S. exported in beef this year. Now, you know, to me, to flood a market for a quick messaging win when you are absolutely decimating the American cattlemen who are just trying to, you know, get a break from years and years and years of bad weather, bad production. Finally getting a break. Going to maybe get in the black this year in their finances. And now we're doing this to them? No, that's not good for this part of America. Maybe it's good for down there in Mar-a-Lago or up in New York where he originally is really from. Not good for us. So, you know, it hasn't even worked on the thing it's supposed to fix. Ground beef averaged $6.88 a pound in July, up over 10% from a year earlier, and up 24% since this administration began. Beef imports are already up 13% year over year. Prices went up anyway. 2 beef plants, one in Illinois and one in Utah, closed this month because there isn't enough cattle to run them. And Tyson says ranchers show no sign of rebuilding herds. You can't undercut your own producers today and expect them to have more cattle for you tomorrow. Think about it. That's just simple math, and the math ain't mathin'. All right, so let's think about here in Hardin County, right here in District 3. We've got working cattle operations, folks who built their herd size over the years, planning for calving seasons and market cycles. Most people in Washington couldn't explain if their job depended on it. Heck, that's what's right behind me, where I live here. So when the federal government floods the market to score a headline, it's not abstract. It's a Hardin County rancher's spring decision on whether to expand the herd or sell off early. That is exactly the kind of top-down shock to a local livelihood the fiscal court should be paying attention to when we talk about protecting our agricultural base here in this county. Segment 2, the same week, kids lost their groceries. While that was happening, the one big beautiful bill, I call it the big ugly bill, its work requirements for SNAP kept grinding forward. Independent tracking shows roughly 3.5 million people lost SNAP access in the first 6 months alone. And the Congressional Budget Office projects the total effect of the expanded work requirements, raising the age cutoff from 54 to 64 and narrowing family exemptions will cut off about 2.4 million people nationwide, on top of $186 billion in federal SNAP funding cuts over the next decade. Now, y'all, as a teacher, I know that half of that number, or more than half of that number, is kids. So you're talking about putting millions of kids off of SNAP, now with no food, coming in to my classroom starving and hangry, because they're hungry and seeing their family sad and unable to feed them is going to make them angry. So when they come into class hangry, it's going to be a real trouble for me to be able to get them to pay attention and to actually care about what they're studying. And this, the most rich nation in the world, this cannot abide. So this isn't abstract to me. I stand in front of Kentucky kids every day. When a household loses food assistance, that shows up first in a kid's attention span, as I'm telling you, and second in a kid's health in the classroom too. A single mom with one child who loses her own benefit under these rules sees her family's food assistance drop from $536 a month to $292. That's real grocery money gone. In the same season, the administration is subsidizing a 25% below market flood of foreign beef. Tell me how that maths up to you. Doesn't to me. Segment 3, the tariff war nobody voted to lose. Now let's talk about Canada, because this one hits Kentucky directly, right below the belt. On August 22nd, the United States imposed new 50% tariffs on roughly $20 billion worth of Canadian goods. Canada answered 3 days later with its own tariffs, up to 50% on American dairy, fish, lumber, steel, and aluminum. For Bourbon country, this is round 2 of a fight we already lost once. Between March 2025 and February 2026, Canadian imports of American spirits collapsed by roughly 81%, from about 718 million down to 137 million after Canadian provinces pulled American liquor off store shelves entirely, Kentucky whiskey exports to Canada fell 42% in one stretch. Beam Suntory shut down distilling at its main Jim Beam plant in Claremont for all of this year, 2026. Now, y'all, the Kentucky Distillers Association says a record 17.1 million barrels are sitting in warehouses instead of shipping because the market they normally sell into is closed. And now they're going to be throwing away that key as bad as we've been treating them. So, y'all, is this that, something that Kentucky really thought we could abide? Kentucky briefly got tariff relief this summer before this new round wiped it all out. And this is where the polling gets interesting. CNN's Harry Enten looked at the numbers this week and called it a 52-point switcheroo. Back in 2024, voters trusted Trump over Kamala Harris on tariffs by 22 points. Think about that. The only person, like I said, that has loved tariffs as much as this president was President Hoover. And go look at how low a rating that tariff-loving president, what his rating is today. Hoover's is one of the lowest. We might have a new low now, but Hoover's rating as a president, because of all of the tariffs that he imposed, gave us the recession of the Great Depression. And my grandparents told me all about that. Papa and Mama survived it. All right. Well, today, the president's net approval on tariffs is 30 points underwater. And among independents, the group that decides elections these days, it's 60 points underwater. On the Canada tariffs, specifically, it's 33 points underwater overall and 44 points underwater with independents. Enten's blunt read: Americans hate the tariffs and they are taking their anger out on the president. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is sitting on a positive net approval at home. It's in the high 70s. So Enten's line was simple. He is losing. Mark Carney, on the other hand, north of the border, is winning. And that's exactly why the two sides have walked away from the table instead of cutting a deal. Now, y'all, again, here in Hardin County and this whole region right around us, where many of us, drive to other counties next door to work. If you don't work here, well, Kentucky is Canada's largest foreign customer in this state's key export categories. And our bourbon industry alone supports over 20,000 jobs across the Commonwealth. When Washington picks a trade fight and loses it twice, Hardin County businesses tied to distilling, trucking, and agriculture absorb the hit, whether or not anybody asked us first. That's the exact reason local elected officials need to be tracking federal trade decisions as an economic development issue, not a Washington abstraction. Now, y'all, segment 4, no exit strategy, no end in sight. And through all of this, the Iran war grinds on with no announced end. The president's own 60-day deadline to reach a deal with Tehran passed this month. Now, he's just talking and talking. He told his envoy to halt talks. Iran's leadership says it will not submit. Military officials have told reporters that off-ramps exist in daily war planning, but so far, the president hasn't taken one. He's called the economic outfit that, in the fallout, he said this economic fallout at home is just a little detour, while blaming the inflation on Democrats, of course, on Biden, of course, who hasn't even been there for a long time now. So when you got, when's the buck going to start stopping there? Because that's something we need in leadership, saying, hey, the buck stops here. And this, man, I've never seen someone in this level of leadership get away with passing the buck as much as this administration does. So, as a combat veteran, when I hear about this no exit strategy as a phrase, it's one thing. You just, you'll shake your head. But as a reality on the ground, as someone who's treated people in conflicts with no exit strategy, nope, this is not going to abide either. A war with no stated objective, well, and not just that, no stated end date is not a strategy. It's a policy on autopilot. And the bill for that autopilot lands on every American household, paying more at the pump and the register. It also, here in Hardin County, is paid for by our sons and daughters who put on that uniform at a higher percentage rate or ratio than any other that you can just about think of in this nation. So we know the real price of this conflict and what not having a real strategy means. Segment 5, fact check. Is the beef contaminated? Now, some of you have seen a viral post claiming Trump is importing the same chloramphenicol tainted beef that China rejected. Now, I'm not going to pass that along uncritically because that's not what we do here, but I am also not going to let this administration hide behind it's just misinformation when the real story is bad enough on its own. Y'all, Straight Arrow News fact checked it directly. And here's the honest breakdown. The claim that beef imports from Argentina increased since 2025, well, that is a true claim. But Argentina still only accounts for 3.4% of total U.S. beef imports. The claim that China rejected a 22-ton shipment over chloramphenicol from an Argentine plant the U.S. also buys from, that's true too. But where that rejected shipment ended up is unknown, and the Trump administration hasn't actually said which countries will supply the new 300,000-ton waiver. And the viral stat that 77% or 77 cattle ranchers go out of business every day, it's misleading. That USDA figure covers all farm types, not just cattle. The real cattle specific number is still brutal. Almost 59 beef farms closing every single day from 2017 to 2020. Now that is a crisis. That is why, all we got to do is do some fact checking, and the facts are still the facts. They're still dire. 59 cattlemen calling it quits per day. That is a crisis of national proportion. That's a national issue. It's a state issue here in Kentucky, and it's a county issue here in Hardin County. And the fact that we're going to make it worse with this policy of waiving tariffs on international beef to gut our market, undercut our cattlemen. No, this is no strategy either. No strategy that this county needs. So no, I won't tell you the beef is definitely contaminated. That's not established, but I will tell you the honest, verified numbers are damning enough without exaggeration. We don't know where this beef is coming from. We don't know what's in it. And nearly 60 American cattle farms are closing every day while the administration ships in more foreign product it can't even name the source of. You don't need a conspiracy theory when the verified facts already make the case. Segment 6, Lake America. And here's what the president spent time on this week: renaming Lake Ontario Lake America. Today, he signed an executive order directing the Interior Department to change the name the second time he's renamed an international body of water after the Gulf of Mexico became the Gulf of America. I guess, you know, in his own words, if you think about it, we have a Gulf and we have a lake. Now all we need is an ocean. So when I see this president spending time on a ceremony about a lake's name while cattlemen and snap families are getting squeezed, oh man, come on, y'all. You're really going to allow this to abide. This is the squeeze we are feeling here in this county and all over this nation. And yet this guy thinks that we are impressed and that it's, oh, our vote was worthy of this guy, because look at these bodies of water he's changed the name of. Yeah, wow. Whoever voted for that way, they voted so good. You know, the Canadian Prime Minister Carney's response is worth repeating. The name Lake Ontario is over 400 years old, older than Canada and older than the United States of America itself. This is not a policy. It's not a plan. It is sheer theater, a distraction, dressed up as a signing ceremony, timed for the same week Canada hit our bourbon industry with new retaliatory tariffs. Renaming a lake doesn't lower a single grocery bill, doesn't put a single Kentucky rancher's herd back on solid footing, doesn't sell Kentucky bourbon to Canada, one of our largest buyers of Kentucky bourbon, and it definitely does not feed one hungry kid. It's a worthless trophy handed out while the real damage piles up. We know this guy likes trophies, but I'm not taking that trophy. Calling something Lake America instead of Lake Ontario does not put food on my family's table. It does take part in taking food off of our table, because now we're fighting with one of our longest, strongest allies and our best neighbor north of the border. So if we think this is something that can keep on abiding and we've got to take it and take it and take it, we've really got to look at what our reasoning process is, because yeah, getting two bodies of water to change their names just because you say so, that is not helping out my kids and our affordability in our household.
It's not a surprise for us that the U.S. would take some form of reprisal to our response to their unjustified tariff, which was on top of other unjustified tariffs. That's not a surprise. But what message does that send to the workers in Michigan and Ohio and Kentucky and Alabama who rely on Canadian demand?
There we go. He knows exactly which states to name out. Kentucky's on the top there. We will rely on selling them and on them having a demand for our products here in Kentucky.
When the Americans go to the negotiation table first with the right attitude towards our industries and a true partnership, of course we'll come to the negotiating table. Is
the right attitudes toward our industries. I mean, how more clear can he put it? We need to go to the negotiating tables with the right attitude about our products that we need to sell in Canada. Kentucky needs to be able to sell its bourbon in Canada and many other products that we grow and produce right here. Canada loves. We need to be able to sell it, and we need someone negotiating for us that values, like I said, our industries. So no, I won't tell you the beef is definitely tainted, but I will tell you that we are having folks at these trade deals that do not have Kentucky's best interest out at heart. They don't care about our industries. So let me steel man this real quick, because they're, try to do that every night if there really is one to do. And that's what we do here. The administration's honest argument is that beef and grocery prices are real problems for real families, that tariffs are meant to rebuild domestic industry over long run, even if they sting short term, and that any president negotiating with Iran has to hold some cards close. Now, supporters would say give tariffs time to force better deals and give the beef waiver time to bring prices down before judging it. That's what some would say. But the trouble is, the timeline doesn't back that up. Ground beef prices rose after the waiver, not before it. Tariff approval has already been underwater in every poll since before Liberation Day in 2025, and give it time doesn't feed a kid whose family lost SNAP benefits this month. At some point, results have to answer for themselves. And we're at that point now. We are seeing the results. We are feeling the results, Kentucky, Hardin County. So tonight, close with the referendum. Here's the through line. Cattlemen undercut for a press release. Kids losing groceries under a law nobody in rural Kentucky asked for. A trade war we've now lost twice, with the polling to prove that voters know it. A war with no finish line. And while all this happens to working families, this administration and its allies keep getting richer off the very policies causing the pain. Now, that's one bad week, but it's not just one bad week. That's the pattern. And the only referendum that actually counts on any of this is the one in front of us in November of this year. So y'all, as you see, I have there in my headline today, register to vote by October 5. Please vote for me in November after you register to vote if you are, if you're not already registered. And we need to see real results from now on. Something, we need people that actually care about our state, what it produces, and the people that work in those industries that help produce it. We need to keep those jobs in the bourbon industry, but they're being decimated now by these tariffs. And this is not just an abstract matter. It's for real, for real. All right, who we got on here tonight? Let's see, we got Nicholas. All right, says I'm over there in Asia, huh? All right. Ghost Face Mem 10. Hi, brother. Occupy Memphis here. I'm seeing a lot of FB posts and comments talking about being stretched thin. Families are struggling and the media is not reporting on it. There we go. Tom says it's the entire operating system for this regime. Figure out what will hurt the people the most and do that. Figure out what will help people the most and do the opposite. Absolutely. You're right on that one, Tom. Tom also says, at Ghost Legacy, media is fully in the pockets of the oligarchs. So much news goes against their owners. Yes. Mike says, I'm getting rammed in the behind by gas prices. I don't blame Trump. I blame those oil companies. Yeah. Well, okay. I blame them both. Mike says, they can rename it all they want, but people know what it is. Mike says, they don't care about you, but do people think the Democrats are going to change anything when they get back into office? He says, heck no. Well, you know what? You put the right ones in there. Yes, I do think so. I do absolutely think so, Mike. I have seen what happened last time we were in a position like this. My grandparents explained it to me. They explained to me that after Hoover ransacked the government by giving everything away to the rich, to the Rockefellers, to the Carnegies, and we just relied on tariffs. Yeah, we got the royal shaft when the Great Depression came. But with Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal and valuing people having a job, making sure that Americans got to go to work, subsidizing work instead of subsidizing big business, that put our country on an immense footing all the way from the 40s up until started getting wrecked in the 80s. So yes, I do think if we get back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt New Deal policies that were for American working people, then we can see something change. But yeah, no, Trump doesn't actually have a living head to run around in free since 2016. Not at all. I've been a free thinker since way before Trump came along. And it's actually this Trump dedication society, this Trump society that's so dedicated to him that they can't open their eyes enough to say, oh, yes, this war was ill-planned, ill-conceived. But I can see that. I know that the military ran plenty of military games. They gamed that game for years. They knew what would happen if we ever did what we're doing. And look at this board game. This board game came out before this invasion. You could have played it as a war game, board game, and realized that you have to control the Strait of Hormuz, that you also have to control Yemen. I mean, yeah, just with playing this board game, you could have war gamed and learned all the possible errors that could come up from that. And so that's it. Yep. I'm calling a spade a spade. It's a personality cult. It's, just what you call TDS, I say is Trump dedication and servility. Being so dedicated to that man, so dedicated and so servile for him that he can do no wrong for you, even while you watch yourself unable to afford gas that wasn't this high until he decided to start this stupid war that everybody they fired in the Pentagon told them this was going to happen. And so they fired them. And it happened anyway, even though they got fired. They were right. So this is where we are in this country right now. So November, remember who it was that voted to allow this. Remember who it is in Congress right now that refuses to invoke the War Powers Act as they are supposed to in Congress. Don't forget that when election time rolls around. Right? I'm not going to. I haven't forgotten, and I will not forget. So, yep, this has been the Hillbilly Think Tank. Keep thinking deeply at all times. Question everything that, the mass media, the legacy media, question what they want to roll out to us. Why are they trying to sell us a war that no one wants, no one wanted? And should we keep on buying it while we see everything going the way it is? I say no. All right, y'all, let's remember here in Kentucky, we know that united we stand, divided we fall. Those aren't just words on a flag. That is the very glue that holds us together when we recognize we are our brother's keeper, we are our sister's keeper. And then if we love our neighbors as ourselves, we cannot be divided, and so we will not fall if that's how we live. Bless your corazon. Remember everyone deployed right now, because there have been 18 deaths now and hundreds of injuries. in this war. And that is no joke. That is the God's honest truth. And we have to have some accountability in this next forever war. Bless your corazón. Have a great weekend, since we're almost there.
And when I reach that valley, I need to see you there. Because we don't need a kingdom, we only need free air. And we don't seek a king, we seek the brotherhood of man. And we won't fight for bondage, as we need no king or woman. We will stand undivided, because we will raise the fallen. Now I need to hear a hallelujah as we tear down the wall there. The divide between heaven and earth, as tears turn to mirth, as we walk through